Hi everyone, it's Hannah from Hand Jam Crochet, and today we are making this quick and easy chunky adult sweater together. The pattern comes in sizes extra small to 5XL adult, and there is an option for a V-neck or a straight neck version, and there's lots of customization areas that we can go through together that you'll find in the written pattern, and I will talk through in this video tutorial as well. I'll add the link in the description for where you can find the pattern, either on my blog or as a PDF in my stores. And I'll also add all the information about the materials that you will need, but we will also go through those now. To make the sweater, I chose to use Amigo yarn from Hobbii, and this is their XL version. It's 100% acrylic. It comes in a beautiful range of colours, and we get 109 yards or 100 metres in 50 grams. So go grab yourself some of that, and then you're going to need a 5.5mm crochet hook, or the hook that matches the gauge for the pattern. Then we will need a pair of scissors, a needle for your ends, and a few stitch markers too. So before I seam this version, I wanted to show you just the construction and just how simple this is. So we begin by working the back of our work. Here's the back in this beautifully textured stitch that we work from the top of the neckline downwards. And then when we get to the bottom, we're going to add a cuff to it. And then when you've done the back, we then join again and start working in this direction for the top. Now, if you want to work a V-neck, I'll show you exactly how to do that, but you can also work a straight neck here. And then with the V-neck, we have to rejoin here and carry on working downwards in nice back and forth rows, really straightforward. And then we add the bottom cuff onto the front as well. Then once you've done that, we then add these side cuffs, which are done in really lovely long easy rows. They're just using single crochet. The whole thing just uses single crochet and half double crochet stitches all the way along the side, back and forth, to give this beautiful ribbed effect at the side. We repeat that on the other side, and then easy peasy, we just add our sleeves into whichever size of portion we would like, back and forth in rows. And then the only thing that we have to then finish up with is a seam. That, imagine I've done the arms already, a seam. The arm is going to come out here. We have to go down this way and down there. So we just have an L-shaped seam on both sides just to finish off. So just 2 seams for the entire thing and really simple stitches. So let's get going. So to begin the back of our sweater, we need to make a center panel. Now please don't worry about this panel, as long as you have met the gauge, this will work, but this panel will not be big enough for your body measurements at the moment, because we're going to add those side ribbing sections on. So don't worry if this doesn't fit you, it's not meant to, but if you meet the gauge, that's the most important thing here, meet the gauge of the pattern, and then this will work. But for different sizes, we have a different number of beginning stitches on row 1, and I'm just going to show you a small sample here because we need multiples of 3. So all of the sizes will have multiples of 3. So we're going to begin with a slip knot on the hook, and then we're working foundation half double crochet stitches. So we're going to start with a chain 2, and then into the second chain from the hook, we will yarn over and then go into the back bump of that second chain from the hook, and then we will yarn over and pull through. We then yarn over and pull through just 1, and then we yarn over and pull through all 3, and that's our first foundation half double crochet stitch made. And then to make our next one, we're going to yarn over, and then that chain 1 that we created for that first one that's just here, we're going to put our hook in there, and we're going to make sure that we get through both of those loops that we have. So you're going to have that V sat on top of your hook there. Then we yarn over and we pull through. Then you're going to yarn over and pull through just 1. That creates our next chain for our next one, and then yarn over and pull through all 3. And you just repeat that process. We yarn over and go through that chain 1 that we made, making sure we get both of those loops over. Yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through 1, yarn over and pull through all 3. And so you need to make as many as the pattern tells you to for your size. I'm making the size medium here, and I believe it's 54 stitches that I need to make, but I'm not going to make that many just for the purposes of showing you this stitch, because this is the main body repeat that I'm going to show you. So I'm just going to do a small sample here in a multiple of 3. Okay, so I have 9 stitches here now, and I have turned my work. And now what we're going to do is we're going to chain 1, and then this next row, this patterned row, is going to work in a sequence of different loops of the stitch. So to begin with, we are going to work into the back loop. So when we're working back and forth in rows on a half double crochet, the back loop is the one that is furthest away from you. Then the front loop is this one straight here at the top. So if you turn the stitch on its end, we have our traditional back loop and our front loop. And then right there in front of you down here, you'll find an extra loop, and that is the third loop when we're working back and forth in rows. So I've chained 1, and the first stitch is going to go in the back loop only. Then the next stitch is going to go in the front loop only. So here we have our back, and this is our front one. And then the next stitch is going to go in the third loop only. So that's the one that's very, very right in front of us there. And then we just repeat that sequence of 3. So back, front, and third. So we have back, and our front, and our third. And this is the last repeat for me here. Back, front, and then our third. You repeat that along the whole of the row, and then you're ready to turn. Now row 3 is going to begin with a chain 1, and then we're just going to work a half double crochet in the back loop only of each. Now we've turned, so our back loop is there, furthest away from us. And then it's entirely up to you. You can work the last stitch. I like to go through the whole of the stitch as opposed to just the back loop, otherwise you get sort of wonky edges. And then you're ready to turn. And row 4 is another patterned row, so we need to work a sequence of these loops, but we're going to start in a different place. So we're going to now start with working in the front loop. So we are going to go front loop, and then third loop, and then back loop. So we've just shifted the pattern along one. We're going to go front loop, third loop, and then back loop. So carry on to the end of your row with that. And then we turn. Now row 5 is going to be a repeat of row 3. So we chain 1 and we just work a half double crochet in the back loop only. And then we turn, ready for row 6. And row 6 moves the pattern on once more. So this time we begin in the third loop. So we go third loop, back loop, and then the front loop. So we have the third loop, the back loop, and the front loop. And then we turn our work. And that's all we need to know. Our next row is a repeat of row 3 again, so chain 1 and work into the back loop only. And so now rows 2 through to where we are now is the pattern repeat, and we just repeat that for as many times as it tells you in the pattern to get the height of the sweater that we need for the back. Now you may find that it instructs you to do a part of that repeat because some needed a little bit more than a full set of this. But the great thing about this now is this is going to set the length of the back of your sweater without the rib. So if you wanted yours to be longer, then just keep working. Keep working as many rows as you like, imagining that this is going to be where your neckline starts, and then just work however much you would like, bearing in mind that then we will need to match that for the front. But you can do as many rows as you like, or stick to the version in the pattern for the length that I have made. So work away on your back panel, and then when you have finished the rows that you need, come back to me. Don't break your yarn, because we will then add the bottom rib for the back section together. Righty ho, so once we have done the amount of rows that you need to for the size that you're making, we now need to put the bottom cuff, and we work this bottom cuff on both the back and the front. So once you know how to do it in this part of the pattern, you'll know how to do it in the front as well. So to begin our cuff, I'm going to chain 11, but you can do as many or as few chains as you like to set your cuff to a different depth. And then when you've chained as many as you would like, we're going to start working into the back bumps of the second chain from the hook, and we're going to put a single crochet in there. And then each of the back bumps along this chain gets a single crochet. So now we're back at our last row, and what we're going to do is slip stitch in the next stitch along on that last row, just the one for this time. Then we're going to turn our cuff. So that's our slip stitch we've just done there, and then I'm going to work into the back loop only of each of these across. So your stitch count now will be one less than the amount of chains that you did. So I did 11, so now my stitch count is 10. And now it's up to you for the last stitch, but I generally put mine through the whole of the stitch rather than just the back loop of that last stitch. And then we're ready to turn. And now we can chain one, and then working into the back loops again, we're going to work a single crochet in each of them. Now here we are at that final row again, and this time we are going to slip stitch into, and for all of our subsequent repeats of this row we're going to slip stitch into here. So there's one and there's two. Now we're ready to turn, and now we need to make sure that we don't work into those two chains that we have. We're going to work into the back loop of each of the stitches that we have, so a single crochet in the back loop only of each of these now. And that's all there is to it. We're going to carry on. When you turn, you chain one and you work all the way down, working a single crochet in the back loop only. And then each time you get back to that final row, we are going to slip stitch in two. So turn our work, and then we're going to work back down here, slip stitch into, back up, down we go, slip stitch into, etc., all the way along until we get to the end here. So once you've done that, meet me back here and I'll show you what we do next. Okay, so once you have completed your back section, we're now ready to start joining, and this is our foundation half double crochets that we did at the beginning. For the size I'm making, I have 54 across here, and what we're actually going to do is join here and work the front from those stitches. So I have got the bottom ribbing that we've just added here, and then this is the right side of my work facing me, and we are going to join to this first stitch that we have here. Now first of all, I'm going to show you how to create the slash neckline, which is shown in the blue version in the pictures, and then I will undo it and I will then show you how to do the v-neck version that I'm going to keep for this yellow one that we have here. They're both quite similar in that we create basically a hole for your head to go in, but it's a different shape and size hole. So what we're going to do to begin with is join to the first stitch, and we are going to then work chain one to get ourselves going, and then for this slash neckline we're going to work 15 half double crochet for the size that I'm making, but you'll see in the pattern that that is different for different sizes. Then once you've completed the amount of stitches you need for the size you're making at the side here, we now need to work a number of foundation half double crochets to create then a space for our neckline. So for this size, well, for all sizes actually, the neckline is the same. So we're going to do 24 stitches and then we will skip 24 stitches here. So we're going to work chain 2. And then into that second chain from the hook, we're going to work just as we did before, our foundation stitches here. So we have 1, and there's 2, and just keep working those until you have your 24. So then once you've completed those stitches, we're now going to skip 24 stitches, which I have counted very diligently, and now put my finger here where I'm going to go. And then we're going to work half double crochet in the remaining stitches along here. So for this size, that's another 15. So your stitches either side should match, but different sizes will have a different number here. And there we have it, that's that first row done. So we now have a head hole that looks really odd at the moment, but don't worry about that. And we're now going to turn our work. And the next part is actually quite straightforward because it's exactly what we did for the back, because now we have the same amount of stitches as we worked for the back, and we're just going to work in that main set pattern again. So we began with working into that back loop, and then our front loop, and then our third loop, didn't we? So then work that sequence for as many rows as it tells you in the pattern. It's a six row repeat, and you just carry on working as you come to those stitches that we've added there for the neckline. So back and forth in rows to match your back panel, and then you'll find in the pattern it then tells you to add your cuff on at the bottom again for the front. Now the important thing to say here is please don't worry, this will not be wide enough for you at this point. It definitely won't be, because what we will do is we will be adding some side panels to accommodate for that. So please don't worry that this isn't big enough for you at the moment. As long as you have met the gauge and figured out in the schematic which size you would like to make, then this will work out absolutely fine. So go ahead and work your front panel if you're doing this neckline. If you're not doing this neckline, bear with me a second and I will show you how to do that. And then put your cuff on at the bottom and then come back to me and I'll show you what we do for the side panels. So if you would like to create the V-neck version, we need to join in a very similar way to we did to the slash neck version. We're going to join with the right side facing to that first stitch that we have there. We're going to chain 1, and just like we did before, we are going to work 15 half double crochet, or the number that you need for the size that you're making. Now when you've done that 15, we are now going to start working backwards and forwards in rows for this portion to create a V here. And then when we've done that, we are going to start working this portion to create a V there as well. So that will then give you a triangle space for your neckline. So bear with me, I know that sounds very confusing, but I promise it will work. So we're going to turn at this point and we're going to be working in our set pattern, but before we work the set pattern, we're going to add a stitch here. So we chain 1 and we are going to be working wherever you are in the sequence of the pattern, you're going to be working 2 stitches in that first one in the loop that is correct for where you are in the sequence. So for everyone, actually, it should be that one that we are there. So that back loop, and then we work the front loop and then the third loop. So we have the back loop, the front loop, and then the third loop. And that's our second row there complete. Now we turn, remembering now we've got 1 more stitch than we had before. And this part of the repeat, we're going to be working into the back loops of each of them across up until the last one, because again we're going to increase on every row, so the last stitch will get 2 stitches in it. So here we are at that last stitch, and what I'm going to recommend is that we put the 2 stitches that need to go in it fully in the stitch. So don't worry about using the back loop there for that. So now we have, for this size, we've got 17 stitches, and we're going to turn. And now we need to start here, and we're going to increase here to 18 stitches. Now this is where it gets a bit funny in the pattern, because different sizes do very different things with which loops we need to use. So essentially we're going to carry on increasing using our main set pattern, but where you are in the main set pattern will change depending on how many numbers of stitches we have here now. Now strangely, for this one I'm actually going to begin in the 3rd loop here, because that's where we are in the sequence, because we don't yet have a multiple of 3, but we will now. So that's the 3rd, and here's the back, the front, the 3rd. And at this point, this is where it's really important to go and look at your size in the pattern and see what your size does, because they all use these loops in various versions, but they do it in a different way. So go and make sure that you're doing it and staying in sequence as you need to for the size that you're making. But then essentially that's it. We're going to carry on each of the rows up until we get to the center of the sweater, whichever size you're making, up until the midpoint. That's what we're going to be doing. So work away, keeping going in this way to create our angle here, and then break your yarn and meet me back, and then I'll show you how we work the other side to match. Okay, so I have completed that odd shaped thing here, and now we're going to basically mirror what we've done over on this other side. So you need to find in the pattern how many stitches. It's going to match the number of stitches that you did here. So for me, that's going to be 15. So I'll count back from here, or you can skip the corresponding number from here. It's entirely up to you, but I'm going to count back for 15. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So I now need to join into here, and that will be where I begin. So we have a right side facing, and we're going to join and work those half double crochets to the end of the row here. And now with the other side, we increased at the beginning of the row, but actually we're going to increase at the end of the row for this one, aren't we? So that it can then work its way in to meet this one here. So we turn our work, and then we work in the set pattern wherever it tells you. We're going to work for the back loop, the front loop, and the 3rd loop, up until we get to that last stitch, which is going to have 2 stitches in it. Here we are at the last stitch then, and we're going to work 2, oh, that's not the 3rd loop there, Hannah. This is the 3rd loop, there we go. 2 stitches into that last one there. And now we're going to turn. And we've got the back loop only for this one. But as we did with the other side, for this first stitch where we're going to increase, I'm going to recommend that we go through the whole of the stitch there. And then we start working in the back loop. So we've added put 2 stitches there in that first one, and then 1 stitch in the back loop only of the rest across the row. And that is it for this side in terms of what we need to know. We're going to carry on working in our sequence, increasing here at the neckline on both rows, the front and the back of the work. The right and the wrong side, that's the words I was looking for. The right and the wrong side have increases as we go along and as we do the pattern. So do make sure, again, as you check in the pattern, the written version has all the details for which loop you work in, for which size, and all of that jazz. So just keep increasing up until it tells you to stop, which will then meet up with here, and then meet me back and I'll show you what we do next. Okay, I have made this side to match now, and I haven't broken my yarn, because what we're going to be able to do now is continue working here. We're going to turn, and then I'm back to the first part of the sequence here of that main stitch pattern. So I'm just going to begin by working the back loop, the front loop, and then the third loop. And I'll work that all the way across until I run out of stitches on this side. So here we are on that last stitch there that we have. And now we're going to grab the other side, and then we're just going to carry on working in our pattern across these stitches that we have here. So we are going to work this back loop here, and then the front loop, and then the third loop. So carry on working all the way until the end of this row now. And there we have joined our Frau V-neck. So we're now going to turn, and the rest of the front is going to work in the same way as the back did. We're going to carry on in the sequence of our pattern. So this row will now start with a chain one and then a half double crochet in the back loop only of each across. So then we are in our main set pattern, the pattern I can't speak. So now we're in our main set pattern of 6 row repeats, and so you carry on for the amount of rows that it tells you in the pattern, or to match the length that you made the back for. So work away on those, and then you're going to add your cuff, your join as you go cuff, which is exactly the same as the one that we added to the back. And then once you've done that, you're ready to work your side panels. So I've now finished the bottom rib for my front panel as well now. And what I've done is I've turned my work at the end of that last row, and now I've got my right side facing me. Because what we're going to do is put these added side panels on. Now the great thing about these side panels is you can use them to just adjust the width of your entire sweater however you would like it. Now if you want to work it as per the schematic, if those measurements work for you, then just follow along with the written pattern and how many rows that I do. But this allows you to add or subtract a small amount from the sides of your sweater as you would like to. And it's really, really simple. We're going to work along the stitches of this rib and then along the sides of the rows of the entire sweater, all the way along the front, all the way along the back, and then meet back here at this rib. And then we'll go back and forth in rows using single crochet stitches. Now, if you want to adjust the size of this side rib, you have to think about the fact that whatever you do, whatever width we're going to make it, you will add 4 times that to the actual circumference of your sweater, because then when it's turned over and we join the side seams, you're going to have that much added to or the whole of your sweater. So to begin the side rib, we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to single crochet in the back loop only, just as we have been doing for these stitches. I've got 10 here. Now when we come to the sides of these rows, these half double crochet rows, what I generally do here to get a nice even edge is I work 3 single crochet stitches for every 2 rows. So that will look like this. We're going to start 1 there, and then that's 2, which is actually in the chain before, it will be, I promise, in the chain before that row began, and then into the full part of the stitch of the next one. So that's 3 allocated for those 2 rows. And now our next 2 rows are this one and this one. So we'll go into that part of the stitch there, into that little chain 1 that we have, and then into that full part of the stitch. And that will give you a nice even edge and a nice flat edge as well. If you find it goes a bit wavy, then you're adding too many. But if you add them at this pace, then this will give you a nice flat edge. So we just work all the way along here, adding to all of the sides of all of the rows, and then when you get back here to the single crochets of this bottom rib, we then work into the back loop only of those. And then all we need to do is turn and chain 1 and then work into the back loop only, just as we did for this rib, but you're just going to go back and forth in very, very long rows now along the front and then into the back. So this is us working along the side of the length of the whole of the sweater here. And then check, as I say in the pattern, for the amount of rows that it's recommended that you work. And then once you've done that, you then can work the other side. We just swivel it round, and with the right side facing again, we will join to this very first stitch of this rib here, and then you will work all the way along this section here, down to the bottom here, and then go back and forth in rows to match what you do on this first side. So if you work away and do your side rib sections, and then you will see actually as it comes, you can turn it over, and once your side ribs are done, you'll be able to get your measurements and see whether it's the size that you would like it to be. And as I say, this is a great place that you can just adjust that slightly by adding an even amount of rows, you know, an equal amount rather of rows either side. So get those side ribs done and then come back to me and we will talk about sleeves. Once you've finished both of your side ribs, we're now ready to put some sleeves on, and you'll find in the pattern that it's detailed for exactly how many stitches for each size that I would recommend, but this is a great way that you can change the sleeves to suit you if you would like to. They can be wider, they can be thinner, they can be whatever you would like them to be. And the key is that we need an equal amount of stitches to be left at the front, so with our V here, or the straight neck if you're doing it, and an equal amount of numbers left at the back. That then leaves the right amount of stitches for the arm size that you would like to make. So the way that you can do that, if you want to, if you've met the gauge and you want to go with the numbers in the pattern, then you can definitely do that. There's lots of options in there. But the other way that you can do it is actually just to measure. Find the center of your sweater and then measure however you would like them to be. So say you wanted them to be 14 inches, as I've kind of done here, then you can measure and you can put stitch markers in at the points that they are. But then once you've done that, you need to check the stitch counts because it may be slightly out one or two either end. So you need to check your stitch count at the front and at the back is even, and if it's not, you just need to jiggle it slightly so that you make sure that your arm is going to sit in the center here. And then when you're happy, these are the stitches that we are going to be using for the sleeve. So in the pattern, you'll see that it tells us we need to have the wrong side of this side rib facing us to begin with. And you count a certain number of stitches or you measure as I've shown you then. And then we're going to just simply work as we have been with this side panel. We're going to join our yarn to the back loop only of that very first stitch there that we have marked. We're going to chain one and then we're going to work a single crochet in the back loop only, just as we have with the whole of this side rib section. So there's nothing more complicated than that for the sleeves. They are just rows and rows and rows of single crochet in the back loop only. So we carry on all the way until you meet your next stitch marker. And just do a double check once you've done that. Check that you've got the right number of stitches there and that you have an equal amount at the front and at the back. Get to your stitch marker and then you're going to turn and then you're going to chain one and single crochet in the back loop only again. So we'll go back and forth for as many rows as you need to get the length of sleeve that you would like. But in the written pattern there are recommendations for different lengths of sleeves there. And then what you will then do once you've done that sleeve is repeat the process, swivel the thing the whole way around and repeat the process on the other side. Now it's really, really important that both sleeves are matching, so make sure you have the same number of stitches on this side and this side as you did on the other side of the sweater. So that will make sure that your sleeves are the same size. So work away on those sleeves, and then when you've done them, we are ready then. Everything is still then flat, so you're at the perfect point to block everything to measurements just to get it nice and crisp and clean. And then we'll be ready to do the side seams and we'll be done. Thank you so much for joining me. I really hope that you've enjoyed making this simple crochet sweater with me. Do come and find me on social media. I'm Hand Jan Crochet everywhere you'd expect to find me, and make sure you subscribe and tap the bell button if you'd like to find out when my next tutorials go live on YouTube. Thanks again and see you soon.